We have won the Great War. Now we will win the last war. We'll rip her out root and stem.
Hey guys, Pete here. This will be my Game of Thrones Season 8 Episode 4 official trailer breakdown. I'm still processing how Episode 3 played out, but I wanted to get this video done before I dig back into that. It's actually pretty exciting because we finally get to see what the back half, which happens to be the longer half of the season, looks like. My initial thoughts were they pumped up the look of King's Landing. The set looks a lot bigger, much in the same way we saw them do at Winterfell. There were a lot of images of the construction of the set out there during filming, and it's nice to see how this looks on screen. The other thing that stood out on the first watch was how both queens look pretty self-satisfied or smug in most of the shots. I doubt this is a feeling that they will both be holding on to, and it seems like they chose to show us that side for a reason. Let's look at it all and break it down scene by scene, and then we'll talk about the big picture. The trailer opens with smoke and we learn that they are burning the dead outside of Winterfell. It's a reminder of what just happened there and how many people fell defending the Stark family stronghold. We head to King's Landing next and get a shot of Cersei looking out of a window. We see the castle walls and people milling around below. Zooming in on the crowd doesn't reveal much, but based on what we know is happening, we can make a guess that this is showing us that their troops are looking a lot better than what's left in the north. The camera angle changes and we see a shot of her from the front and see that Euron is by her side. She looks confident and he looks like he's impressed with the spectacle. Back in the north, we see some Unsullied filing out of the Winterfell yard, and some battle cleanup and repairs happening. Sansa's looking into the yard, but we can only guess as to what's going on since she's out of focus and looking the other way. In the next shot, we see the Stark sisters looking worn out from the battle. It's not surprising considering what they just went through. I would imagine this is directly after the battle before they go burn the bodies. As we're looking at them, Daenerys' voiceover starts. She says, "We have won the Great War, now we will win the last war." There is an accompanying shot of Jon that matches what we see with Arya and Sansa. We notice their battle scars and empty looking expressions. After Jon, we cut to Daenerys and see her finish what she's saying. At first I thought this was a continuous shot and thought it looked like Dany recovered from the battle much faster than everyone else. When I looked at it again, it looks more like she's inside. Either way, she's addressing the people, has Missandei and Varys at her side, and looks ready to move on to the next war. The following scene looks like a celebration, and it looks like the Dragon Queen has won over the surviving lords and ladies who are in attendance. This is a big turnaround to the way things were looking in episode 2, and this seems like the right time to mention that it looks like Jon isn't pressing his claim in this trailer. Everything we see looks like Daenerys is taking her role and moving forward as if his parentage reveal hasn't changed anything. I suppose that makes sense since he did bend the knee to her, but I doubt this will stay a secret for long. There's another quick shot of Daenerys at the dragon's nest, or is it a dragon's lair? Not sure what to call the area where her dragons hang out, actually. There are two shots at this location, and this one just looks like she's checking up, being a mom. There may be something else going on here, but I don't see it. Arya and Gendry both made it out of the battle alive, and we see them sharing a kiss. Maybe something more is in the future for these two. I definitely had a feeling Gendry was going to be a goner based on episode 2, and was on the edge of my seat every time they showed him in the battle when the Whites were running amok inside of Winterfell. But yeah, they're safe and sound and they're sharing a kiss, and who knows what's going to happen with them. Outside we see Daenerys, Grey Worm, Jon, Sansa, Arya, and a few others carrying torches out to burn the dead bodies. They're piled up all over the place. We can see most of the survivors in this shot, including Ghost, which I wasn't sure about when I made my last video. I had a ton of comments telling me that he was spotted in the trailer, so it's good to see that he's actually there. I think you might even be able to see Jon Royce in this shot, who didn't have any scenes in The Long Night that I can remember. But yeah, they're burning bodies, and the shot makes plain the reality that it looks like a lot more of the people that were lined up in front of Winterfell before the battle ended up in that pile rather than made it back alive. We got our first glimpse of this in Melisandre's final scene, and I do wonder about where her body and her glamour ended up. There's a quick shot of Daenerys walking in the crypts by herself. From the way the lighting is, it makes it look like her eyes are teared up as she goes by. Her facial expression also looks as if she might be trying to hold in her emotions, but there's no context to go off, so I'll just leave it there. Next we see Rhaegal fly over a ship with Targaryen sails. It's a cool looking shot, and I imagine they're heading to Dragonstone. It cuts to Cersei and Euron with creepy Qyburn in the background. Euron goes down to one knee, and his facial expression makes it look like a proposal rather than anything else. I didn't mention it before, but there's a lot of talk of Cersei being the final boss now that the Night King is dead, and it's worth mentioning that she definitely looks like a boss in this red dress. Like most people, I doubt that she's still pregnant with Jaime's baby, and she doesn't look pregnant at all in this trailer to me. After that, we see Sansa watching both dragons flying overhead. We can see that they both made it out of the battle alive, and that Rhaegal has some damage to his wings. Sansa has a concerned look on her face when we see it, and this feels like she's watching Jon and Daenerys leave for the south, leave for Dragonstone. In the next shot, we look at Jon and Davos riding out of Winterfell with Gilly and Tormund looking on behind them. When I first saw this, I thought maybe he was going off on some kind of diplomatic mission, but it seems pretty unlikely when you think it through, considering they're in the north and everybody's traveling south anyways. We see the Targaryen ships sailing south and a shot of Daenerys standing in front of Drogon. Then we get what I think is the most peculiar shot of the trailer with Cersei, where she appears to be on the deck of a ship. We hear the final voiceover from Daenerys, who says, "We'll rip her out root and stem." This is a familiar phrase we've heard a couple times before. Arya said it as she was wearing Walder Frey's face as she was poisoning everyone in the dining hall, pointing out that they should have killed all the Starks. Varys also used this expression when he was telling Tyrion about being cut. But yeah, Cersei looks forever confident with Euron in the mountain to her side. You can see King's Landing in the distance, and they do seem to be sailing. So the trailer ends there, and the big takeaway is that things are moving south. Daenerys and Jon's forces are depleted, but she appears to have won over the people in the north. Sansa, who would be staying behind, looks concerned, and who can blame her? She knows what they're up against with Cersei. This episode is nearly as long as The Long Night at 79 minutes. And Miguel Sapochnik said in an interview with EW that episodes 3, 4, and 5 are like a single story with a beginning, middle, and end. It sure looks like this middle episode will involve moving everyone into place for a battle in King's Landing in episode 5. The actual length of the episode gives us some time to linger in the north before they actually leave, and it definitely leaves some time for us to figure out what Cersei has planned. I have a feeling that there's a lot we're not seeing in this trailer, but it's really hard to figure out what it is, considering we haven't seen anything beyond the first 3 episodes in trailers except for that short scene at Dragonstone. That would indicate to me that there's going to be a discussion between Jon and Daenerys about how things move forward. It looked tense, but we don't know for sure that that fits into this episode because there's no reference. I think that when we see Cersei on the ship, that it means that there's going to be some kind of a meeting. There's really no good reason for her to leave King's Landing otherwise. Of course, as Daenerys and Jon get set up at Dragonstone with their remaining forces, that puts them a lot closer to King's Landing, like right next door. And if it wasn't for the dragons, they'd be pretty vulnerable in that position. The stage is set. We see where things are headed. In the comments of my last video, a lot of people were pointing out, I mentioned that I thought that it was a divisive episode, and it has turned out to be that. People are really split on how they feel about the Night King dying, Arya being the one to do it, you name it. Puzzling in a way to figure out how they're going to really up the stakes for the showdown in episode 5. I mentioned this in previous videos that I can imagine ways they can make Cersei the big bad and they can make this pay off, but there has to be something that we don't quite see yet. So I'm hopeful that the story is headed in the right direction. I don't think it's impossible that this could work out. It just depends on what we actually see on the screen. Cersei has set herself up to be a top shelf villain. It's just that we saw them fighting the army of the dead, and how will the Golden Company actually compare to that? I'm excited to see. I'm not that worried, and I'm interested to hear about what you guys think is going to get set up in this episode. Do you think there's any treachery in store here that we're not seeing in the trailer? Do you think it's as odd as I do that they're showing them looking so smug? They both can't win. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel to follow along. I plan on doing a full recap and review of episode 3 next. I do have to travel and fly home tomorrow, so we'll see how that all plays out as long as the schedule works. I'm definitely going to watch episode 3 again and give it another look through new eyes. And that's it for today. Thanks for watching. I will talk to you soon.